to drink, but yeah, it's pretty decent. At my grocery store, it was like the pick of the month or something, so I would say it's decent. I buy it again. Okay, so to get into it, today's video is not exactly like my other true crime videos, as in it doesn't really involve a murder or toxic relationship or anything like that, but it is a true crime nonetheless, and it is very on theme with the fact that it is Black History Month, and I am a black person, obviously, but yeah, I thought that this story was crazy and it was interesting and that it needed to be told, so here I am telling it. This is the story of the Muse brothers. So their names were George and Willie Muse, and they were twins, born in Roanoke. I think that's how you pronounce it. Roanoke. Let's go with that. In Roanoke, Virginia, in the 1890s. Both of them were albino African American boys. Their grandfather was a slave, and their parents were tobacco sharecroppers. I don't know if anyone watching this video has an extensive history background or anything like that. But one of my minors while I was in undergrad was African American Studies. And in learning about African American culture from a deep historical and literary standpoint, one of the things that I learned about was the process of sharecropping. And my grandmother actually was a sharecropper when she was young, which is kind of interesting. But basically, sharecropping came about after slavery. When slaves were freed, they didn't have anywhere to go because they were brought here against their will. So most of them didn't have shelter. They weren't going to find a job because no one was going to hire someone who a few years or a few months beforehand was doing this work for free. So most of them resorted to being sharecroppers, which meant they went back to the farms and plantations that they were freed from, and their former masters and now landlords would tell them, okay, I will give you this plot of land and these seeds and these tools for you to cultivate enough food for you to eat and enough space for you to build a shack. Or some people actually lived in former slave headquarters, but because they did not have any money, everything that they acquired was on credit, and they were to pay it back through the money that they made sharecropping. But often they would never make enough money to pay back their debt in full, so it turned into a vicious cycle of debt and debt and debt and more debt. But yeah, that sharecropping, not to go off on a tangent, but I just thought it was interesting. Okay, back to the story. So, in 1899, the twins were kidnapped in Truvine, Virginia, by bounty hunters. After they were kidnapped, the bounty hunters then sold them off to a freak show circus where they were forced to work. When they were kidnapped, they were told that their family was killed and that they would never return home. And I think that's just such an interesting trope, because I know some people would say, like, why slavery and then post-slavery, where, you know, like, black people could get snatched up and killed at any point, at any time, and it was normal. It was something that happened literally every day, so it could be very believable that their family was killed off for no apparent reason. So, for whatever reason, obviously, the boys believed them and went along with them. I don't know, that's just kind of sad because literally this story happened over 100 years ago, and I feel like there are so many tropes that are true then that are still true now within the African American community. Yeah, that's pretty fucked up, but like that's the truth of the world that we live in. But getting back into it, so obviously when they were sold to the circus was profiting off of their eccentric looks. They were albino black people, so they had very white pale skin, blue eyes, but they had black features such as large lips, large nose. They have freckles, which is like crazy. That's very uncommon in African American people. And they were forced to grow these massive dreadlocks. Yeah, not like neat form dreadlocks, but like very like wild grown out dreadlocks that all clumped together. It looked very Rastafarian, you know. They became famous across the United States, and they were known under various monikers. So let me tell you some of the names they were known by. They were known as Eco and Ico, white Ecuadorian cannibals, sheep-headed men and sheep-headed cannibals, ambassadors from Mars, Darwin's missing links, and lastly, nature's greatest mistake. So, yeah, they had these crazy names and monikers that they went by. They weren't cannibals, they weren't Ecuadorian, but, you know, the circus said whatever they needed to say to get people to come and see these albino men. So, while they were working for the circus, they were not allowed to go to school, nor were they paid for their work. It was said that they were bringing in thousands and thousands of dollars per show. Like, people would literally come out to see them, yet they hadn't made a dime off of all the money they were bringing in. The only thing they were giving was clown attire, clothing, and food. That was it. Just the essentials to keep them alive. Later on down the line, the owners of the circus found out that the twins were musically gifted. It was said that they could play any song on any instrument, whether it be the saxophone, the xylophone, or the mandolin. I actually don't know what a mandolin is, you guys, and I forgot to Google it before I started making this video. So if anyone knows what a mandolin is, tell me in the comments. This made them even more of an asset and allowed them to bring in even more money for the circus, in which they still were not being paid for. But during the entire time that they were kidnapped, their mother never stopped looking for them. Every source that I saw wanted to make it clear that she was illiterate. I don't know why. I think a lot of people were illiterate during that time, especially African American people. But they wanted to make it known that she was illiterate. touring with the Ringling Brothers Circus. Yes, the same Ringling Brothers Circus that we know today. And they returned back to their hometown for a show. Their mother heard word of this show and these two albino twins, and she just knew that those were her boys, and she was determined to bring them home. So basically what happened was, in the middle of a show, their mother interrupted while they were on stage in an effort to reunite herself with her sons. It's not exactly stated how she did this, but it is stated that Harriet, who was their mother, stood up to police and a multi-million-dollar circus company in hopes of bringing her children home, in which she was successful. I don't know how, but she got them away from the circus and safe and back home with her. That's the determination of a black woman, y'all. So yeah. After this, the Muse brothers still toured based off of their exotic looks, but they did it on their own terms, and their mother, Harriet, kind of turned into a Christian, and she was like their manager, and she made sure that they were going to get paid. It's said that they lived a very fruitful and profitable life. They were able to tour until they were in their 50s and still make money from it, which I think is great. I don't know. So that's the story. This story actually has kind of a happy ending, unlike most of the stories, which are just tragic. I'm like, yeah, they killed their whole families. Yeah, that's the story. But no, this story has a kind of a happy ending. The mother gets reunited with her sons, and those sons, they continued to tour, and they started to make their own money. It's just sad that they could only begin to make their own money after almost 30 years of being enslaved, most of the time by the Ringling Brothers Circus. And it's also kind of odd to me that even when they were freed from the circus, they still had to resort in using their exotic looks and their unusual features to make money, and usually they made money from all white crowds, and I don't know, something about that just makes me uncomfortable, like these two black men being ostracized by groups of white people. But I mean, it is what it is. That's how they made their living, and at least they were able to in the end make money from it. I just thought this story was crazy. Like, there are so many tropes that are true in this story that are true today, and I can't even believe that. Even thinking about the entertainment industry, and particularly hip-hop, rap and hip-hop, that's a universal music genre now, and it's mostly headed by African American people. But so many artists have bad deals in which they're doing all of this work for a company that's ultimately owned by someone that doesn't look like them, and they're not getting paid, or they're getting paid shit. So I don't know, I just found it crazy how African American people have just been getting exploited for so many years, and how a story that comes from the 1800s can still connect to the 2020s. Yeah, that's just food for thought, and that is the story of the Muse twins. So yeah, that's that's it. So with that being said, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. If you would like to see